So a bit about myself, like I don't know if I don't know if people don't know me yet, but like I'm a software engineer by trade. I've worked for 15 years on augmented reality, mostly on mobile. And when the Vision Pro came out, I made the move to immersive video because I thought that was really, really cool. So like stepping away from 6DoF into 3DoF because I have the very sincere belief that if we don't make immersive video work, that whole set of devices and experiences is not gonna make it because if can't get users to just like put their butts down on the couch and watch something amazing, like we're not gonna make them stand up and walk around. And also like Apple, like the adventure experiences and all the other ones, I think give a very, very compelling argument of what can be done. And so much of it is yet to be discovered and explored. And I think that that's a great point for an outsider such as myself in the world of video to come in because like so many of like the rules and the I guess the guidelines of traditional video making are out the window. And so that's very exciting. And I couldn't help but notice that like all the workflows are kind of like fucked. So it was important to build tooling and infrastructure to help with that. And I'm gonna go a little bit more in details with that, but I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Um, so what I want to talk about today is basically like do a concise oral version of this Medium post that some of you might have read on Medium about what's new, what was announced at WWDC, and what's coming later this year, probably in September or October, with the next version of VisionOS, VisionOS 26. Um, so I think here everybody's aware, but WWDC is the Worldwide Developer Conference that's organized by Apple every year, and they're usually on the schedule where they announce um, new versions of operating systems and new APIs, new functionalities, new technologies in the May-June timeframe, and they usually release like a new iPhone and new MacBooks and new devices in the fall ahead of the Christmas season. And I think that like we were all hoping that the Vision Pro, which was mostly marketed as a productivity device for enterprise, but turned out to be an excellent entertainment consumption device. We were all hoping that this media entertainment angle would get some attention, and it did because Apple finally like unveiled specs and details on what is inside this immersive video format that they've been using to create those amazing videos. And they introduced also a whole bunch of new other formats that are their own interpretation of existing things like VR 180 or VR 360. And they also multiplied um, playback implementations with different frameworks, different technologies to deliver that content in different types of apps and for different types of users. So I want to go all over this, and I'd say feel free to jump in if you have questions, but I'm also happy to take questions at the end and go back to them. So the Medium post I wrote, according to Medium, takes 18 or 19 minutes to read, so I won't blame you if you didn't go through it, and hopefully I will do it justice with this presentation. So when we talk about new formats, we all familiar with 2D, 3D, definitely spatial also, which is this weird format that they introduced because like iPhones can take them, but we all kind of wonder like where is this one going to be? In Apple Immersive Video, which is the one that right now only Apple has produced themselves. So they shipped the Vision Pro in February of 2024 with playback capabilities for only those three formats to the left, 2D, 3D and spatial. And if you had like footage, like for example, 180 footage laying around, um, you had to implement your own player because there was no native way to play it back. That's how Mike Swenson built this open source project called Spatial Player that basically created a sphere onto which the video was projected that I then extended into OpenImmersive to give it nice like scrubber and playback controls and error handling um, and that's been used by a number of apps since. So with VisionOS 26, what Apple is doing is that they are plugging that gap and essentially making, at least on paper, OpenImmersive obsolete and unnecessary because now finally VisionOS can play natively those different forms of immersive media, and so they're bringing native support for VR 180, whether it is stereo or mono, also VR 360, again like mono or stereo and what they called wide FOV, which is like a whole menagerie of like different weird lenses that you find in action cameras, like the various GoPro heroes. And also they're bringing Apple Immersive Video. So I tend to talk about immersive video for any format that's not a rectangle. Um, and Apple Immersive Video or AIV is the very, very particular flavor of Apple's immersive video that comes with a number of like extra metadata and bells and whistles. So it's going to be a little bit confusing. I hate acronyms, so I try not to say AIV, but I think like for the purpose of this, I will refer to the Apple flavor as AIV specifically. Um, in order to support those non-AIV immersive formats, um, Apple introduced something that they call the Apple Projection Media Profile, APMP, which I'll cover a little bit later. But first, let's dive into AIV and what this mysterious black box is. So, something that's very important to remember, and that's, I guess, Apple didn't really spell it out explicitly, but it's becoming more and more obvious, is that right now they want AIV to be synonymous to the Blackmagic Cineversa immersive to resolve workflow. There's been a lot of interest since the Apple Vision Pro came out in turning footage that was taken with other cameras like Canon or Raptor with a dual fisheye lens into AIV. And Apple even gave filmmakers the option of doing that with the Apple Immersive Video Utility, which is this, I guess, internal project that was promoted to official app that they released at NAB, where you could load any stereoscopic video that was 180 and slap a little preloaded file into it and turn that into something that would be treated as a legitimate AIV file by the Vision Pro. But interestingly, Apple just released the version 1.1 of this utility and took away this capability. So if you haven't updated the app yet and you want to use this feature, don't update it because there's no way to downgrade. But it really shows the intention there where Apple is like, no, if you did something with Canon, that's not AIV and they don't want to mix and match. And I can understand that they don't want to support too many variations of camera to video file in the future. So, what is in AIV? I think everybody here is familiar with the MVHEVC format, which is a type of compression that was introduced for spatial videos where instead of having the two images on the frame side by side or top and bottom, um, they're actually overlapping kind of in the sense that they have two layers, which allows one eye to use the compression of the other to get about 30% of file size reduction. And so this constitutes the frame and the video data, but there are like three important things that are added to that in order to make it uh, an AIV file. The first one is what they call the venue descriptor, which is a blob of metadata that applies to the entirety of the video. That's essentially the list of the different cameras that were used with their intrinsic and extrinsic parameters, which means the configuration of the lens with the focal distance and everything, but also the position of the lens and various other configurations. This applies again to the whole video. And what's nice is that you know how if you've ever used a Canon camera, um, sometimes you have to recalibrate it because the way the lens is fitted on the sensor, like the circles might be a little bit offset. And if you don't have that perfectly right, the footage in the headset's not it's not gonna work. So the approach of Apple and Blackmagic here is interesting in the sense that like they try not to touch the pixels as much as possible, but embed into the file information as to how to interpret those pixels to render them properly in the device. And so instead of aligning like those circles perfectly, they just add the tiny little bit of metadata, basically saying where they should be. That would be one way to describe it. And similarly, um, what they call the presentation descriptor, at least in their videos, is a third track aside from video and audio. That's additional metadata that may apply to every frame. And they haven't really described in great details what examples of presentation metadata you will find frame by frame. But the one they detailed the most is what they call presentation commands, which is for things like fade to black, or for example, like flip inversions. I think that like one very visual way to understand what they're trying to do with that is that let's say you want to flip the image horizontally to so that things on the left appear on the right. If you do that with a traditional video, it's very easy. It's like flipping an image because you have only one stream. But if you do that with a stereo video, you also have to invert the position of the eyes because otherwise you're gonna have like some weird artifacts. And so instead of again manipulating the pixels in the frame data, you can just say for from this timestamp to this timestamp, it's going to be inverted. And this is what those presentation commands are for, so that the pixel data is unchanged and it's live during playback on device that the pixel data will be interpreted differently according to those commands to present the video separately. They have a number of other things, like for example, the contour of the what part of the video should be presented. So you will always have like the full 180 degrees pixel data in the frame information. But for example, if you want to narrow it down to maybe 90 to really focus on, for example, a face and really like drive the audience to focus on only this one thing, um, you would use a presentation command to say, essentially the polygon that goes around my frame is this now instead of being the full thing. Last but not least, Apple did something very interesting here with what they called APAC and APAF. So the positional audio format, which is essentially the same thing as Dolby Atmos, but with even more precision. So it allows both ambisonics, which are a way of representing sound that's directional in 360 degrees, but also object-based sound, where the sound comes from sources that are represented in 3D with coordinate and also an orientation, so that as you look around, the speakers automatically mix all those sources of audio into something that sounds very realistic. So it's kind of interesting that they really supported Dolby Atmos, which does a similar feature for a long time, and that they are offering their own completely separate standard, but that becomes also available as part of the Blackmagic workflow to kind of unify all the different ways of doing spatial audio, which I found out recently is a nightmare. Another interesting thing that they introduced with Apple Immersive Video is the possibility of streaming it over HLS, which is the HTTP-based protocol that they pioneered maybe over a decade ago to have the video download in small chunks so that you don't have to wait for a full download before viewing it. And Compressor, which is Apple software for encoding video, now natively creates HLS streams that can then be uploaded to a server, for example, to serve the content. Moving on to the projected media profile. So again, this is what Apple uses to support VR 180, VR 360, and other oddball type of projections that are not square. Um, the video that they produced for WWDC talking about the media profile had a lot of very good visualization of what they mean and why it's important. So like in the image that we have here on the top right, it shows footage that's taken from a GoPro, and that footage is not called rectilinear because the straight lines of reality are not straight on the frame. And so while it's fun to see like that kind of footage distorted to give like a little bit of a, you know, 1990s like skateboard video type vibe, in an immersive device such as the Vision Pro, it's kind of nice to feel like you're there. So unfortunately, like those lenses, they're neither 360 or 180, so they have their own particular math to translate into a curved screen in front of you. And so where before a video player would have to essentially keep a list of available cameras to do that distortion, the idea is that the math for that distortion is now embedded in the media itself so that a software player of today can play videos of cameras that don't exist yet, and that will make sure to embed that data inside of them. And I think that that might also enable like more creative use where a distortion of footage would be intentionally wrong to create like cool effects. That's the sort of thing I expect to see in the next few years. So that data is metadata, so it's like binary, like really hardcore, like geeky stuff that's embedded deep inside the video files themselves. And of course, like a downside of this approach is that existing media that you might have on your hard drive doesn't have those yet. So fortunately, there is a concerted effort from Apple, Blackmagic, Canon, and other camera manufacturers to add support to those as part of their tool chain. So it's easy to add this metadata to existing footage. In particular, um, it should be as simple as right-clicking in macOS 26 on a particular file and in the quick action click add APMP metadata, and it should give you a little window where you can choose like what it is. The other part is that for select few cameras, including the R5C with the Canon dual fisheye lens, VisionOS should be able to auto-detect that footage comes from a particular camera because of the, I guess, the camera identity information that's already embedded in the metadata of a given file, and automatically um, select the right profile to present it correctly. So that is what's very, very cool about that, is that that makes it a lot simpler for a lot of different formats and existing videos to be presented on the Vision Pro. And something I haven't mentioned here is that, for example, take videos for domes that are usually 180 fisheye, like as a circle, and usually there's like an implicit orientation that's tilted maybe 30 degrees there. Um, right now, there was not really a very good way to present those on the Vision Pro, and so with a media profile, there won't be a need for a custom app anymore to have like those planetariums like render exactly where they should. And I think that's a very exciting aspect of this new uh, metadata. Of course, I guess one word of like to caveat this a little bit is that whenever a new let's say whenever a new standard is introduced, adoption is slow, especially if that changes existing workflows that people have been used to, especially if they've been used to doing this for a decade or so. So um, I think it's going to take years and years for this to become more mainstream, and it's also going to be largely dependent on what other manufacturers like Meta or Google or Samsung are doing with this standard. Because like it's supposed to be an open standard that works both on MOVs and MP4s, which is also an ISO thing. But um, NVHEVC itself, in spite of like its 30% improvement in compression, so far has not been adopted outside of the Vision Pro. I think I remember that Android XR is going to support it, but no word from Meta at the moment about that. So we might have to live in a world where serving video for different devices from different manufacturers might require different files, and hopefully one day we'll go past that. Now I want to go a little bit over like what it looks like to build an app to present those immersive formats. So um, most of the post I wrote was about that, and I'm conscious that like I'm not exactly in a crowd of developers here, so I'm gonna be very, very, very high level. One thing to know, and I think that we all know intuitively, but it's nice to have like the official terms on that, is that for any video that's in one of those immersive formats, there are three different modes of presentation. The first mode is the embedded one, like as is exemplified on the top right, where a video is embedded inside the user interface. So you can have buttons, text, a variety of other things that are composed around it. Typically, embedded video is flat and um, and appears at the surface of the window. There are some exceptions to that, and I will come to them later. But unfortunately, like by default, you don't get like a portal that's punching through your UI window. I certainly hope that it's an improvement we're going to see one day, but at the moment, the idea of embedded is like it's flat and integrated. Then there is expanded. Expanded is the idea that your video is taking over the entirety of the window that it's launched from. And so you cannot have any custom UI on that. It's all provided by Apple, but it gives you a nice portal. So for example, like the expanded mode is the default mode for spatial videos. And they have like this nice feathered outline. They have controls that are a little bit more minimal. The title of the video is overlaid at the bottom left instead of being part of the playback controls. It's really nice. And then immersive is when the portal expands to cover as much as of your view as the video allows. So that's what we see, for example, at the bottom right, so using still the same example of spatial video where the feathering of the edges is extending further out, and typically also the frame itself of the video is a bit wider. For Apple Immersive Video or for any of the APMP format, that would be the video wrapping around you like a to the edge of its field of view. Something that's not used very much yet, but I think we're going to see a lot more with those improvements by Apple, is viewing Apple Immersive Video or APMP formats inside a portal. And you can move the portal around, and it's like a window that lets you almost like poke your head inside. So, very interesting and almost surprising given that Apple is usually not a very web-friendly company, technologically speaking, is the support for AIV and other formats playback in Safari embedded in a page. So the video tag that was introduced over 10 years ago with HTML5 and that allows to embed very simply a video in a page in Safari now supports those immersive formats, including them having a button that can blow them up to full screen. And I guess like what's very interesting about that is that it means that for the first time, you can distribute immersive video content without the constraints of shipping it via an app on the App Store, which creates, of course, like constraints in terms of monetization, but also in terms of content policy. So I expect that this is going to be huge. It's probably huge for DOVR. It's probably huge for other platforms out there that are interested in doing distribution. Using Safari in the Vision Pro is not particularly good. So I'm wondering what's going to happen, what is going to be the preferences of end users between having like a user-friendly app ecosystem that can bring them videos in nice UI, or like having to, type by looking at the keyboard and clicking to get to a web page. It's a bit frustrating. Um, so the videos that are supported for this are both like streaming over HLS, as I mentioned, but also files that are downloaded in one chunk. Given the size of immersive videos, I don't think that the feature of like just downloading a whole file and playing it inside a web page is going to see much action, but it's technically possible. And they have a great video where they talk about improvements of immersive content in the web on VisionOS. And they're also introducing spatial photos. Apparently, spatial videos were already supported. And they're introducing also panoramas in a variety of 3D models. So panorama pictures taken with an iPhone, for example, will be able to be visualized as a like kind of like a magic window inside web pages, which is really cool. And then you can blow them up just like in the Photos app. Um, the reason I included that, even though it's not video, is that I think that we're going to see a lot of development in terms of how you present the videos before users jump into them. I think that the Prima app did a fantastic job in creating like little 3D scenes of the videos that they offer to give you a little bit of sense of 3D before you jump in. I'm a little bit surprised that Apple TV didn't do that to emphasize the 3D-ness of the content, because even Quest TV, for example, on Meta platforms did that. But anyways, like whether it is on the web or in native apps, I think we're going to see that more and more. Speaking of native apps, so here is the laundry list of the different ways you could present videos. Until VisionOS 26, there was no way to present Apple Immersive Video, and there were very limited ways to present spatial video. And for something like VR 180, you would have to use a library like OpenImmersive. So let's go through them real quick. Quick Look is a framework that Apple made to preview any type of file. So when you use your Mac and you hit the space bar on a file and it shows you a preview of an image or a PDF or something like that, that's Quick Look. And so Quick Look also exists on VisionOS. If you use the Files app and you open a file in there, it will usually open in a small window that appears in front of the folder in your Files app. That's Quick Look as well. And so um, you can embed that in your own app in two different ways. One is preview application that creates a separate detached window to the side. And there is the second one, what they call QL preview controller, allows you to embed it and compose it within the context of your UI window. Two big limitations with those is that Quick Look only works with local files, so it can only work with immersive videos that you have previously downloaded, either because they are already in your files or in photos, or because they were pre-downloaded by the application itself. For that reason, I think it's not very useful because those videos again are so big, and the experience of downloading videos before watching them, even if it makes the quality better, I think it's a total like user experience dead end, and it's not something that we're gonna see very much, especially with improvements in streaming technology to deliver that content to end users. Then we have Video Player, which is the most bare bones API you can use in Swift to present a video. Unfortunately, that one is entirely incapable of leaving the embedded mode to go into expanded or immersive. So with this, you're gonna see now you can see immersive video as a circle, and before you couldn't see immersive video at all. So it's an improvement, but it's not something that's going to be very useful. Then there is AV Player View Controller, which is the older brother of Video Player, and it's a much um, older API. And here we're entering the weeds of like how at Apple some of those technologies they've developed them for decades, and so, for example, AV Player View Controller is something that's been around for 20 years, and a lot of it is now considered legacy, and they're trying to replace it with Video Player, but replacing old technology that works with newer, shinier technology takes a very long time. So, even though it's the sort of thing that will take you 10 times the amount of code that the video player offers, that's currently the recommended way to present those videos. By default, they will show embedded in 2D, and they will present to the top left a small button that looks like a panorama icon that you can click to blow it up into expanded and further into immersive. So it's two clicks to go from embedded, expanded, immersive. Or it can be only one click. And for that, that's the AV Experience Controller, which you can think of as a configuration option that you throw at your AV Player View controller to say, when the user uh, goes to expanded, I actually want them to go straight to full immersive. Um, so a lot of my Medium post talks about those subtleties there, and it's completely crazy what it looks like in code. It's something that's so insane that AI cannot help you with that. It. I don't know what happened there. I think that like they had to deal with so much legacy that they came up with like sort of like Frankenstein monster of an API there, and maybe that's gonna be improved in the future, but it's a little bit fiddly. Uh, but all of those on the left, they all have in common that they do not use Reality Kit. If you're not familiar with Reality Kit, it is Apple's competitor to Unity. It might be like a really glorifying it, but essentially that's what they're trying to do. With Reality Kits, they try to have essentially a little bit of a game engine where you can put in your environment at XYZ coordinates various objects that float around. And so that's how OpenImmersive was built, because it would create like a sphere and then project a video onto it. Um, Reality Kit comes with its own player called Video Player Component, which now makes the creation of the sphere unnecessary because it can interpret what the video is, again, thanks to the APMP profile, or if it's immersive video, and then present it to you the way it should be. What's to know with Reality Kit is that you can embed it into a volume window, or it can be a full immersive thing. But if it's a full immersive thing, usually you will have to close the rest of your windows, and so you will not see your widgets, and it will you will not be able to see the other windows that you might have open. Uh, and so last but not least, OpenImmersive is essentially like a library that's designed to make interacting with RealityKit simpler because it's just one line of code to say, hey, I want to open this video that has this URL. So I've made sure with every beta to make sure that it still works and that it uses like the latest and greatest and that it stays simple for developers. One very quick detour to spatial audio. So spatial audio is something that like as a developer of immersive video apps, I've heard requested a lot. And it turns out that if your video contains specialized audio. So I'm not sure exactly like which types of spatial audio are supported by this and which one are not supported by this. But it's only like those what like 10 lines of code that you need to put somewhere. And what this does is that it tells the system level audio playback to do the mixing of the audio based on the position of your head. So normally that only works with AIVU. So far, I haven't really managed to feel a difference with other types of videos. But interestingly, um, with an AIVU file that was created from the video utility from Canon footage, it made the audio spatial, but kind of in a simulated way where it's like they had like put two arbitrary locations for the left and right stereo channels. And so then like turning my head around, I would hear them as if they were coming from like those fake speakers. And, it's not accurate, but it already is such a step up from turning your head, but having the audio locked to your ears. And so uh, this sort of like secret ghost feature of the immersive video utility that does this sort of virtualization of of stereo into spatial audio, I think is something that I'd love every app to have because it feels really awesome. Um, so yeah, that's my little detour via spatial audio, a subject that I know way too little to present very seriously. And so last thing, for those who don't know Acute, little plug, check us out. So again, OpenImmersive is an open source project. It's on GitHub, and it's made of two halves. One is a VisionOS app that you can download from the App Store or build yourself locally with Xcode that can play local files or also like stream URLs if you have one laying around. But it's also a Swift library that makes it very easy for developers to include playback in their apps, and it's used among others by like House Spatial Film, Vantage, which is like the mixed martial arts video app that's really cool, and Bliss, obviously, of like Rodrigo and Chris fame. And the other thing that we do is Acute Pro, which is our web platform that's basically a CMS for uploading and streaming video. And we have like its companion app on the App Store called Acute Pro that where you can see your own files and stream them privately. And what we're working towards in conjunction with the release of VisionOS 26 is bringing a public tab to this Acute Pro app that is set to become just Acute, and where creators can just simply share their video. And so our goal is to um, provide the shortest possible path between creators signing up to the platform and their video being available publicly on an app that's on the App Store. Um, and so right now, like it's only possible by inviting people privately. And so hopefully by September-ish timeframe, it will dramatically accelerate things for especially creators who can't have their own app or who are not satisfied with the quality that they get from platforms like YouTube and others. And that's it for me. That was a lot of talking. I wish I had got myself a glass of water. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the presentation.